2, I got to step back, I'm going to release on that. Here's phase 1, here's phase 2, I got to step back, I didn't have to release on that. Here's phase 1, here's phase 2, got to step back, I didn't have to go to phase 3. Here's phase 1, here's phase 2, got to step back, I didn't have to release. Here's phase 1, here's phase 2, here's phase 3. Now this is interesting. You see how your horse is drawn on a circle? What is the reason for that? The reason is this horse is confused still and still looking for the right answer. All that tells me is this horse is A, trying, and B, still confused. I don't have to change anything. I just keep doing what I'm doing and see if he can start to figure out the right answer. And I go, here's phase 1. Ah, that was the first one off of phase 1. Here's phase 1. Here's phase 2. Here's phase 3. Here's phase 3 and a half. Here's phase 3. Here's phase 3. Here's phase 3. And I'm not going to phase 4 because in this instance it's going to be completely overkill for this horse. Because this horse, when I get all that moving left and right, to me that's a horse that's trying to figure out the answer. Here's phase 1. Here's phase 2. Ah, good. You see the eye is still a little high, a little confused. To me, that's the same thing as what I just went through with Catalina's horses. I still don't have the understanding. The horse is still just backing away from pressure, not backing away because of understanding. For them to understand the being at 0 like this at the beginning and end is the most important part. Touch me, and I'm going to back up and start again. Here's phase 1. Good. Here's phase 1. Good. Here's phase 1. Here's phase 2. Good. Here's phase 1. Good. Take a break. Again, if you run a horse that's a little fidgety with their head, you want to avoid going into the space around the head too much, even if it's to pet them or feed them or scratch them. If they're a little anxious and a little fidgety, you can stay out of their space or let them touch you.